Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, most gracious, ever merciful. Assalamu alaikum. Peace and blessings of Allah be upon you. Welcome to tonight's lecture organized by the UK Talim Department. As per our tradition, we will start with the recitation of the Holy Quran. Can I request Hakim Mensa Sahib to recite a portion of the Holy Quran?
Assalamu alaikum. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا أنفقوا من طيبات ما كسبتم ومما أخرجنا لكم من الأرض ولا تيمموا الخبيث منه تنفقون ولستم بآخذيه إلا أن تغمضوا فيه ولا تيمموا الخبيث منه تنفقون ولستم بآخذيه إلا أن تغمضوا فيه واعلموا أن الله غني حميد. الشيطان يعدكم الفقر ويأمركم بالفحشاء والله يعدهم مغفرة منه وفضلا والله واسع عليم. يؤتي الحكمة من يشاء ومن يؤت الحكمة فقد أوتي خيرا كثيرا وما يذكر إلا أولو الألباب. The verses I just recited are from Surah Al-Baqarah, Holy Quran, chapter 2, verses 268 to 270. In the name of Allah, the gracious, the merciful. O ye who believe, spend of the good things that you have earned and of what we produce for you from the earth, and seek not what is bad, that you may spend out of it when you would not take it yourselves, except that you connive at it. And know that Allah is self-sufficient, praiseworthy. Satan threatens you with poverty and enjoins upon you what is foul, whereas Allah promises you forgiveness and from himself and bounty. And Allah is bountiful, all-knowing. He grants wisdom to whom he pleases, and whoever is granted wisdom has indeed been granted abundant good. And none will take heed except those endowed with understanding.
Jazakallah. Tonight we have the pleasure of being joined by Fahim Anwer Sahib, serving as Secretary Waqfe-e-Jadid Ahmadiyya Community UK. Along with him will be Nayab Sayyid Sahib, serving as General Secretary UK for the International Association of Ahmadi Architects and Engineers. As always, there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions. These questions will be put to our guests on your behalf in the last 15 minutes. Please type your questions into the live chat and kindly ensure they are relevant to tonight's topic. It gives me a great pleasure to hand over to Fahim Anwer Sahib.
Jazakumullah, Shakil Saab. Thank you very much for having me on these your lecture series. And I want to take this opportunity now, before I forget at the end, to thank you for all this series of lectures that you've been arranging for us. There's a presentation I'd like to go through for the Waqf-e-Jadid talk. So if you could please share the presentation. And while you're putting that up, this particular session for today is mainly in English. And yesterday there was a brilliant lecture rather, by Maulana Faizahi Saab on Waqf-e-Jadid, and it was in Urdu and it was absolutely brilliant. So I would highly recommend to the viewers as well, if you need a different perspective from today's, then please listen to Maulana Zahid Saab's lecture from yesterday. So Jazakallah for this. So if we go through to the first slide of this presentation, and this will play with a short video. Good.
دنیا میں انسان مال سے بہت زیادہ محبت کرتا ہے. اسی واسطے رویا میں لکھا ہے دیکھے اس نے جگر نکال کر کسی کو دیا ہے, آپ میں یہ دیکھے اس سے مراد مال ہے. یہی وجہ ہے کہ حقیقی اتقاء اور ایمان کے حصول کے لیے فرمایا لن تنالوا البر حتی تنفقوا مما تحبون. حقیقی نیکی کو ہرگز نہ پاؤ گے جب تک کہ تم عزیز ترین چیز خرچ نہ کرو گے, کیونکہ مخلوق الہی کے ساتھ ہمدردی اور سلوک کا ایک بڑا حصہ مال کے خرچ کرنے کی ضرورت بتلاتا ہے. اور ابنائے جنس اور مخلوق الہی کی ہمدردی ایک ایسی شے ہے جو ایمان کا دوسرا جزو ہے, اس کے بدون ایمان کامل اور راسخ نہیں ہو سکتا. جب تک انسان اثار نہ کرے دوسرے کو نفع کیوں کر پہنچا سکتا ہے. دوسرے کی نفع رسانی اور ہمدردی کے لیے اثار ضروری شے ہے. اور اس آیت میں لن تنالوا البر حتی تنفقوا مما تحبون میں اسی اثار کی تعلیم اور ہدایت فرمائی گئی. بس مال کا اللہ تعالیٰ کی راہ میں خرچ کرنا ہی انسان کی سعادت تقوی شعاری کا معیار اور محک ہے.
Jazakallah. If you can go through to the next slide. So I thought the best place to start would be a verse from the Holy Quran recited by Hazur Iqtas. and explaining what the Prophet Messiah has said in regards to financial sacrifice. And this spirit of financial sacrifice is something that is a characteristic of Jamaat Ahmadiyya. We hear it on a regular basis. Jamaat Ahmadiyya frequently gives to numerous causes, and it just feels like there's almost like a bottomless well in terms of how much the Jamaat donates. And Huzur has even commented once that there's no other community, no other organization that gives as much as we do so consistently. So this particular slide, I want to ask the audience a few questions, and this is something that they can answer themselves in their own living rooms, wherever they're watching it with their families. A series of questions, and it's just to remind you what you have heard already. Huzur Aqdas and the Khulafa have been talking about and been giving on an annual basis have been discussing and talking about Waqf-e-Jadid on a regular basis. And so it's not new to us. We're all familiar with Waqf-e-Jadid. However, it'll be very useful just to recap some key points. And this first question is in the spirit of vying with one another in good deeds. You will know it's another Quranic instruction to compete with another in good deeds. And so every year Huzur announces the top countries which donate towards Waqf-e-Jadid. So the first question here is, which position does the UK Jamaat currently hold amongst the top contributing countries? 4 options: first, second, third, or fourth. And if you go to the next slide for the answer. Next slide. There's a considerable delay, possibly from my side, but if you can go to the next slide, Nadeem Saab. Okay, good. It's going to the next slide. Good. So after all of that, we are first, and it's very important for you to appreciate that the UK Jamaat is first when it comes to Waqf-e-Jadid, particularly in light of the fact that this is where Huzur Aqdas resides, and there's an expectation on the UK Jamaat, and it's a source. It would obviously bring Huzur a source of happiness and pride that the country he resides in is first in one of these noble tehreek. So it's very important for you to remember that we are currently first, and we've held this position for a number of years. The next slide, the next question is, or the next comment is, though we are first, it's very easy to sit back and relax and think, Alhamdulillah. However, there are many members who only contribute 10, 20 or 30 pounds per year, earning adults. And if they only understood and knew what the tehreek was about, then their donation would be considerably more. And so the hope is that this presentation or this talk here gives some people a better understanding of this particular tehreek. So if you go to the next slide, please. So again, I'm being hit by the delay. So hopefully there will be a question that comes up that says, who established Waqf-e-Jadid? And the options will be, was it the Prophet Messiah alayhi salam? Was it the first Khalifa of Islam, Ahmadiyyat? Was it the second Khalifa? Hazrat Muslim Maud? Was it the third Khalifa, or was it the fourth Khalifa? So you have a number of options here as to who started the scheme of Waqf-e-Jadid. And if we go to the answer on the next slide, and these are, I'm putting these questions for all of the viewers just to understand at the basic level what some of the history, how it came about, and what it's for. So if you can go to the answer, and the answer you should have in front of you is Hazrat Muslim Maud, the second Khalifa. Apologies, Nadeem, so I'm a bit slow. So if you could forward to the next slide as well. So the slide that we should be on is the history of Waqf-e-Jadid number 2. Again, Nadeem Sahib, if you could help me get to the next slide. History of Waqf-e-Jadid number 2, where it says, when was Waqf-e-Jadid established? And it will have a number of date options. Got it, brilliant. And so, when was Waqf-e-Jadid established? These are 4 quite important dates in the history of Jamaat: 1934, 1947, 1957, or 1965. Give you a few seconds to have that discussion at home, and if you can go to the next slide for the answer. And the answer that you should have in front of you is 1957. In fact, December the 27th, 1957. So we are approximately approaching 65 years of this tahreek. Are we on the slide with the answer? Hopefully we are. To understand where these other dates came from. So 1934 was when Tehreek-e-Jadid was launched, November 23rd, in fact. 1947 was the partition of India, Pakistan. This is a very key point in this discussion, in this lecture. And 1965 was when the second Khalifa passed away. And this was his last Tehreek. As a Muslim, as you're aware, his Khilafat was for more than half a century, established so many pillars of Jamaat Ahmadiyya, and this was his last one. So the next question, what was the purpose of Waqf-e-Jadid? So this is a key and crucial question. A lot of people probably are unaware of this, and this is probably where their understanding may kind of grind to a halt. So there's a few options. Is it to teach Ahmadis living in remote villages of Pakistan about Islam Ahmadiyyat? Is it to preach Islam to Hindus and other non-Muslims? Or is it to establish mosques in remote villages? If you click to the answer, the answer that you should see, hopefully it'll pop up on the screen. Again, my connection is slow, so I can't see it, but the answer is in fact all of the above. And before we go to the next slide, which will play a video, I want to give you a brief background to this. So as we mentioned, 1957 was when India-Pakistan split. There was a huge transition of people between these two big countries, and a very traumatic time for the Indian subcontinent, for a lot of people. And Pakistan, by the early 50s, mid 50s, was a very young country. As a Muslim Maud, he saw in this newly formed country that there was a moral decline amongst the people. And I'm not talking about Ahmadis, I'm talking generally, there was a moral decline. And so he asked Hazrat Mirza Tahir Ahmad to do an assessment of the situation in the country, particularly in the rural areas and in the border areas of Pakistan. And he noticed, and the findings was that there were Hindus living in these poor regions, Hindus who couldn't afford to migrate to India. They were being taken advantage of by Christian missionaries that were in the region, and so they were being converted to Islam. The Muslims generally were taking on the customs of the Hindu neighbors as well. So all these things had seeped in. And at the time, as similar with Tehreek-e-Jadid, there was an uprising against Ahmadiyyat at the time. People were disillusioned. They wanted someone to blame or pick on, so they picked on Jamaat Ahmadiyya. So this was all like a culmination of Huzur's vision towards Waqf-e-Jadid as to what can the Jamaat Ahmadiyya do to serve the people even better. And so he asked for volunteers to essentially give their lives, go to these remote regions and preach to the Hindus that were living there, but also there were Ahmadis living there as well, and to give them the tabiat as well. And as a result of all of this, mosques were set up, schools were set up. So Nadeem Sahib, if you can just play the next video clip.
सिंध में हिंदुओं के इलाके में तबलीग का काम हुआ, बहुत मुश्किल काम था ये भी। ये हिंदू जो थे वहाँ के रहने वाले शहरों में, वहाँ की बारिशें न होने की वजह से मजदूरी के लिए सिंध में आया करते थे आबाद इलाके में। तो यहाँ आकर
Nadeem Sahib, are you able to play the clip?
की बदसलूकी की वजह से इस्लाम के नाम से भी घबराते थे वो। गुर्बत भी इनकी उरूज पर थी, बड़ी बड़ी ज़मीनें थी लेकिन पानी नहीं था, इसलिए कुछ कर नहीं सकते थे, आमद नहीं थी।
Okay, it doesn't seem to be playing for some reason.
और इसी गुर्बत की वजह से मुसलमान ज़मींदार जो इनके पास ये काम करते
Okay.
थे, तंगी किया करते थे, बेगार भी उनसे लेते थे, या इतनी मामूली रकम देते थे कि वो बेगार के बराबर ही है। और इसी तरह जब ये देखा ईसाई मिशनों ने कि उनके साथ ये सलूक हो रहा है, तो इनकी गुर्बत का फ़ायदा उठाकर ईसाइयों ने भी इमदाद इनको देनी शुरू की है, उसके साथ करके लालच देकर ईसाइयत की तरफ माइल करना शुरू किया इन हिंदुओं को। तो ये बहुत बड़ा काम था जो वक़फ-ए-जदीद ने किया उस ज़माने में, और अब तक कर रही है। तो बहरहाल अल्लाह ताला ने मदद फरमाई और बड़े सालों की कोशिशों के बाद उस इलाके में अहमदियत का नफूज़ होना शुरू हुआ।
Jazakallah. If you go to the next slide, I'm going to possibly speed up a bit because of the shortage of time. So in which parts of the world does Waqf-e-Jadid operate? So in other words, where are the projects of Waqf-e-Jadid? Is it only in Pakistan? Is it South Asia, which is Indian subcontinent, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh? Is it West and East Africa? Or is it Europe? If we click forward to the answer, the answer that you should see in front of you is, in fact, South Asia and West Africa. West and East Africa, rather. Good. And Nadeem Sahib, I'm going to, because of time, there's the next clip, if you can fast forward over. However, just for the sake of the viewers, originally, Waqf-e-Jadid was just for Pakistan, only for Pakistan, and donated for by the people of Pakistan. However, in 1984, the fourth Khalifa decided that, if you can fast forward through this one, we would go to the next. Yep, next slide is fine. Apologies. So this was more for time. Essentially, Hazur highlighted that in 1984, Hazrat Qutb Rabi, he expanded the scheme to India, to Bangladesh, and parts of Africa as well, and he opened it up for the whole of the world to participate also. And then Hazur went on to say that the donations of people from Western countries will go to Africa specifically and India. This video clip here is another key part of this presentation, the projects of Waqf-e-Jadid. So where people think that it's just for mosques, it's a lot more than that. So the beginning part of the clip was the Moulamin College, similar to Jamia. This here shows one of the hospitals built by Waqf-e-Jadid through the donations of Waqf-e-Jadid. Here we have a clip of the doctors, volunteer doctors, who will go to these rural parts where there's no roads. It's pure desert, and often these people in these villages have no access to medicine and health advice. And this is a key. This is something that would never have happened without Waqf-e-Jadid, essentially. Women's health, a very key part of this scheme, such that women don't really have access to lady doctors or to medicine, in fact. So this gives them an opportunity to be seen, to be assessed, and then treated accordingly. Things like eye clinics. So eye problems are common in these poor parts of Asia and Africa due to the bad water. So eye treatment is done through Waqf-e-Jadid. It's going to go into schools for boys and girls. Again, another very important factor. These children, after the age of 12 or 13, they would not have any access to education. And so Waqf-e-Jadid has allowed these children to go into further education and to essentially excel themselves and give themselves a future. This is an example of a computer institute. So it's not only schools, it's a computer institute, giving them an opportunity for better paid work as well. Handicraft skills, giving the women folk a chance to sell their embroidery and so on. Now this is where IAAAE step in. As you can imagine, clean water is very scarce in these regions, in these parts. And so through your donations of through Waqf-e-Jadid, it's allowed people to have a tap, for one. They don't have taps in these villages, in one tap for the whole village, giving them access to clean water, giving them access to electricity via solar panels, things that we take for granted, the utilities we take for granted. IAAAE, which is the International Association of Ahmadi Architects and Engineers, they I will hand over to Niyab Sahib in a moment, but they essentially their projects where they operate in parts of Africa and parts of India, their projects are funded by Waqf-e-Jadid. It's important for you to know this. And so at this point, I'm going to hand over to Nayab Sahib, who can explain how people's donations have essentially been used and how it's affected the lives of people. So I'll hand over to Nayab Sahib now, if Nayab Sahib's here.
Nayab Sahib, we can't hear you. You might be muted.
Sorry, I beg your pardon. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Can
Yes,
you
we
hear me
can.
now?
Yep, Nayab Sahib.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu to everybody. Jazakumullah Fahim Sahib and Jazakumullah Nadeem Rahman Sahib for allowing this opportunity to try and share with all the members with the aspect of IAAAE projects and how they are actually, through this blessed scheme of Waqf-e-Jadid, able to carry out a lot of work in terms of trying to improve lives of the many. So if you just bear with me for a second, I'll just share a screen. Just wanna... Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can, Nayab Sahib.
Jazakumullah, Jazakumullah. So this short presentation is basically to cover the blessings of Waqf-e-Jadid and how it impacts the lives of many for the in positive terms across Africa. So very quickly, as we're conscious of the short of time, quick introduction to IAAAE, how the projects are enabled through Waqf-e-Jadid, touch a little bit on how lives are actually changed, and then finally just to conclude with an element of talk on sacrifice. IAAAE, which is the International Association of Ahmadi Architects and Engineers, was founded by Hazrat Khalifatul Masih III in 1980. The initial objective of setting up the IAAAE was twofold. One was to actually substantiate the Quranic truth in regard to modern discoveries. And the second part was to try and provide the Jamaat and leverage the skill sets available within the engineers and architects to help develop the infrastructure of the Jamaat as it grew. Now, moving on, that's why it was created. During the tenure of Hazrat Khalifa al-Masih Rabi, who was also coincidentally before his period of Khilafat, the first patron of the association. Through his tenure, mashallah, a lot of work developed and progressed and accelerated through his visits and his deep desire to get an understanding of what were the real challenges facing all the people and how the Jamaat could get involved in trying to progress this. Furthermore, with Hazur Khalifa Khamis, Ayyub Ta'ala bin Nasr al-Aziz, Hazrat Amir al-Mu'mineen, due to his period of time which he spent, an extended period of time out in Africa, he saw many of these challenges firsthand. And as such, shortly after his Khilafat, he refocused the association's activities primarily to two main areas. Number one, to try and find and serve as much clean potable water out to the masses, especially out in rural areas, and find through solar renewable energy how we could provide cheap and clean energy and light to the masses. Now, in terms of projects, there's a couple of core streams. Water for Life, which is predominantly focused on delivering all of the water out to all those in need. We have to date done 2,700 water points, which includes hand pumps, it includes solar pumps. In a number of places, it includes rain harvesting solutions where in areas where you can't drill or access water that easily. And we're serving approximately 2.5 million people with water as a result of this blessed scheme, which has been enabled through Waqf-e-Jadid primarily. We then have our AEC, or which is known as the Alternative Energy Committee. This is the division within IAAAE, who are focused on providing small-scale microgrid electrification, providing light and energy and MTA to the villages out in the remote locations. And to date, we have approximately 700 units, small units, which the association has developed itself, the engineers developed, which provides the power and it provides small elements of light and a MTA solution out into the rural areas. And that's approximately serving about 120,000 people across Africa. We then have our architects division. They get involved in the design of mosques, hospitals, schools, community centers, and radio stations. So there's a lot of work which underpins the rest of our projects through this. What we then do is we have a discipline called village projects. Now, within this particular initiative, both the water elements and the light and energy and MTA are combined and installed as an infrastructure within small villages to make them completely sustainable so that they become fully resilient themselves, having all water, electricity, and MTA. And within the village projects also, as Fahim Sahib mentioned earlier, there's an element of soft stuff which goes in to try and help develop. So we'll set up maybe in the community center a training school, or we'll provide them with something as simple as sewing machines so that they can do their own tailoring and try and create some incomes from that. You have an element of cash crop agriculture. We provide them a small plot of land with irrigation from the water that we provide through a solar system so that they can grow their own crops and earn themselves a little bit of an income there. Finally, a new initiative which has started recently, which is an extension of the work that we've been doing already, is one of knowledge transfer. So Masroor International Technical College, which is a scheme blessed by Hazur Ayatollah bin Aziz, is now under construction with a view to setting up a technical training facility through which we can help people not only with the provision of their basic life requirements, but also to give them some training in skills such as motor mechanics, carpentry, repairing water pumps, creating small-scale solar systems, with the view that they can actually go out and use these skills to actually become employable. Impact on lives. Now, we've touched mainly the main area of focus, which both Hazur or the Khulafa have mentioned, Fahim Sahib has mentioned, is the provision of potable water for potable clean water. Every 3 minutes, not through the lack of water, but through the provision of dirty water, an infant dies. The mortality rate is exaggerated. Electricity and light. Many of the villages that we go to, they've never even seen light before. Some of the villages that I remember we go to saw these mud huts and they had these metal corrugated sheets going up in the windows and they were putting them up. So I said to the Murabbi Sahib who was accompanying us on that particular trip, I said, Murabbi Sahib, are these huts still under construction? Are they waiting for the windows and stuff to come in? And Murabbi Sahib just smiled and said, no, these are their windows. As soon as it goes dark, because there's no light whatsoever, literally their lives come to a halt. They switch on small gas lanterns within their huts, which are smoky, they're, extra negative impacts on health. But this is the way. Many of them haven't seen light before. Economic. Once again, as I said, we've talked a little bit about how we try and add an element of knowledge transfer, try to teach some skills and do some skills transfer while we're out doing our projects. And now, inshallah, going to be doing it full time once this new center is built. Finally, something that we take for granted, and it is probably the biggest, most impact that these people get. Through the solar systems that we provide, we also provide a low power screen and satellite system. And through this, truly, we've been very, very blessed and humbled to be able to go out and help fulfill this prophecy of Hazrat Masih Maud Islam, that it will cause thy message to reach the far corners of the earth. It's absolutely mind-blowing sometimes when you go out there. You've trekked 16, 18, 20 hours to try and get to a location. This is how remote some of these locations are. And you get there and the message of Khilafat and Hazrat Masih Maud Islam is being passed. So what I thought in terms of moving forward, just to give you some perspective on the whole thing, is to share some videos and pictures with you to show you A, the challenges that are faced out there, and then B, how the solutions provided through the association and through the blessings of this blessed scheme of Waqf-e-Jadid, we were able to change the lives of many. So with my first slide, I'm going to start off, and you're looking at the title and thinking, pineapple juice. I thought this was a presentation on Waqf-e-Jadid. Now, as we go out to do the water projects, one of the very first things, and this was my very first trip, we go and take a water sample from the well. And this, brothers and sisters, was the very first sample that we pulled out of our first borehole. Not only did it have the color of pineapple juice, but the consistency and viscosity of this actual liquid was not far off from pineapple juice. And I said to the Murabi Sahib and the Molim of that village, I said, so I'm assuming that this water is no good and this is sealed, they don't take the water from it. They said, no, this is their regular water supply. This was the water supply for about just under 700 people. And they use this to wash, to clean, to think. So I thought, okay, pure chance. This is the first well we've been to, and maybe it's I've just had some bad luck here and it's a bad experience. So we moved on to well number 2. So this is just a small video I'm going to play. So this was a situation at well number 2. So I thought, okay, a stroke of not so fortunate luck here, and maybe third time lucky. So the next well, which was only 1 kilometer away, which was actually quite strange because typically the distance between each water point can be anything sort of up to sort of 6, 7, 10, 12 kilometers. So the fact that the next well was only a kilometer away, I thought, okay, we'll see here. This is the actual photograph which I took when we got there. And this was the actual well, which was supposed to be sealed. The pump was not working. As a result, that square that you can see in the middle, the lid has been taken off it. All sorts of stuff's falling into it. These 2 gentlemen who were there, I asked Murabi Sahib, I said, are these guys doing some construction work or something close by? And we were told, no, these are local villagers. And this, brothers and sisters, is the true reality of what some of the levels of poverty that are seen out in the rural areas. This was in the district of Shinyanga in Tanzania, which literally took us about 4.5, 5 days to travel to. It was about 1,200 kilometers from Dar es Salaam. And this is what we face. So when we get there, one of the first questions, as well as looking at the physical water pump and condition, we tend to ask some soft questions to try and get to the root cause of what the problems actually are. So we said, this water, we take it that you're not using this because it's just absolutely filthy. And they said, no, we use this. We said, do you suffer any illnesses, or do you feel any? Do you get anything like stomach upsets or anything like that? And they just laughed. They said, yeah, that's normal, isn't it? So that's what we would take. Would be rushing straight into the doctors here. This is the state of the conditions in some of these places where they consider that the norm. They know that they're going to get ill from drinking this water. But unfortunately, this is the situation. Finally, we moved on to well number, the next one. And this was 10 kilometers away. This was the next closest thing. Upon getting there, you see this beautiful, lush green area. And I said to Murabi Sahib, I said, where's the well? Where's the water point? he then continued to highlight this red square, what you're seeing in here. This was the water source for 2,500 people. This is the condition. So this is a little bit of showing you what the challenges are. Now, alhamdulillah, just through the simple exercise of going, ripping off a pump, rehabilitating the borehole, which is basically flushing out all the water with the compressor to clean up all the fractures in the bottom within the rock through which the water comes. And 9 times out of 10, these pumps have been out of action sometimes for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. And all that is required is a small rubber washer at the bottom of the cylinder, that's thing. So we replace the whole pump anyway in order to give it some further longevity. But this is how simplistic the nature of an exercise. Now, once this is actually done, we chlorinate it, put it back up together, do a water test to make sure that the water is safe to drink. And then what we do is we request either the local village elders or the chief to come and pump the first few strokes. Now, by the stage that this pump is actually getting ready to pump its first few primes again, when they pump those strokes and that trickle first starts coming through that spout, then turns into a flood of water, clean water, the feelings, the sentiments, the elation, words cannot describe. And even just though I've done this hundreds of times, each time you explain it, the sentiments that go through you, they truly are indescribable. Now, moving forward in terms of the social impact on the water side, here's a short video which will give a very quick outline of what the Water for Life team does. Okay, Nadeem, was the sound coming through okay on the?
No, it wasn't. When you share, there's a button that says enable sound, just like Zoom. If you want to reshare, then the sound will come.
Okay, just give me 1 second. Welcome, sir. Yep.
Niab Sahib, because we've got 10 minutes, if I just
Yeah, please do. I'll hand back over to you. You can complete the rest.
right, so I'll round up. Okay, so I'll round up in this in the remaining 10 minutes. Jazakallah Niab Sahib for explaining how the proceeds of Waqf-e-Jadid, how it actually is where it's spent. Essentially, it's spent into these projects. These IAAA volunteers go with their own. They pay their own fare, and it's literally their own bed and breakfast. And then it's the projects, that's where the money is spent. Nadeem Sahib, if we can skip through to slide 20. While you're doing that, I will briefly talk about Daftar Atfal, which is the Office of Children. And people get confused with the word Atfal. Atfal means children, so Daftar Atfal is the Office of Children. And this was set up by the third Khalifa, and it was to encourage children, Ahmadi children, onto their lifelong financial sacrifice. And he set up honorary titles, which you'll see in front of you now: a young Mujahid, Mujahid Safi Daum, Mujahid Safi Awal. Young Mujahid is £2 a month, £3 a month is Mujahid Safi Daum, and Mujahid Safi Awal is £5 a month. And I've equated it to these meals, and there's a reason for that, which again, for lack of time, I'll skip. So Nadeem Sahib, if you skip the next video, but stay on this page. Huzur mentioned in 2007 khutbah that if children, or if parents of children forsake burger and chips once a month, then these children will be able to make a substantial saving and give that saving toward Waqf-e-Jadid. Advised our young children how to save through Waqf-e-Jadid and to give this money. And it's interesting to note, before I go on to this, it's interesting to note that the highest level, £60 per year, is more in some cases where earning adults are giving. And when the third Khalifa set up Daftar Atfal, he even commented that he's setting this up so that the children take up the shortfall left by the adults. So indirectly, it's embarrassing the earning members who are able to pay more, who are able to donate more, but yet there are children giving more than them. And just another comment on the children. In Pakistan, the Daftar Atfal Chanda is huge. Huzur commented again, I think about 5 or 6 years ago in the khutbah, that half of Pakistan's contribution to Waqf-e-Jadid, half of that came from Daftar Atfal. And if you put this into perspective, that the work of Waqf-e-Jadid goes towards hospitals, schools, medicine, and so on, and giving people a better start in life and through life, some of these people don't even accept our children who have made these sacrifices, these financial sacrifices. They don't even accept them as Muslims, and they're treated as second-class citizens. So this is the beauty of Ahmadiyyat, and these are the role models who, only to win the pleasure of Allah, they are giving from their own money, their own pocket money, their own gifts towards this blessed scheme for the betterment of others. This second to last screen, just for people's information, how you can donate, especially during this lockdown. It's very difficult to go to the mosque and pay in person. So chanda.org.uk. We, by the grace of Allah, have been using this extensively this year. So please do so if you can. Alternatively, and very simply and very easily, give Sadr Sahib or your local finance secretary a call and just ask him what practically can be done. And even if it's you're arranging to leave a check on your doorstep when he turns up, or some practical arrangement, just have a conversation. It shouldn't hinder your donation, basically. And if we finish with this very last slide, which is some further guidance from the Quran and from the Hadith, and it's just reminding us that if we give in the cause of Allah, then Allah is the most generous. He's the You cannot get a better reward from anyone other than Allah. If you give something in His cause, and Allah will multiply it manifold. This is from the Holy Quran. The case of those who spend their wealth in the cause of Allah is like that of a grain of corn which grows 7 ears, and in each ear there is 100 grains. Allah multiplies it even for whomsoever He pleases. So it's Allah's promise to you that if you give in His cause, and Allah will reward you abundantly in return. Similarly, we have many hadiths. This is just one of them. That wealth is not diminished by giving to charity. So do not be afraid to give. Your heart tells you. If your heart tells you that these people who have next to nothing, my 10 or 20 pounds is not enough. If I am able to give more, then your heart will compel you to give more. So in these last few weeks of Waqf-e-Jadid of this year, please try to give. As I said at the beginning, it's a characteristic of Jamaat Ahmadiyya to sacrifice financially. Is one of our key characteristics, one of our things that make us stand out as Ahmadis. So I urge all viewers and listeners to continue this trait. Jazakallah. Back to you, Nadeem Sahib and Shakil Sahib, for any questions, if there is any time remaining for us.
You're on mute, Shakil Sahib.
Jazakallah, Fahim and Anwer Sahib, for such an excellent, interactive and comprehensive lecture. It is clear testament that Ahmadiyya Muslim community is serving humanity at a
possibly my delay, but if there are any questions.
Yeah, we have some questions from viewers. So the first question is, can someone pay on behalf of their deceased relatives?
Asking, but I will point out some key questions that do come to me just for your information. Simple things like, what is the difference between Tehreek-e-Jadid and Waqf-e-Jadid? It's a very common question because the dates are so close together. Tehreek-e-Jadid, which is just finished, Hazur did the sermon recently.
Sorry, Fahim Sahib, we can't hear you. I think we've lost Fahim Sahib. We can't hear him. Fahim Sahib, are you there? No, we've lost complete sound.
Yes. Again, common question that comes away. Or even unborn children. It's a tradition of our Jamaat that we to invoke the mercy and blessings of Allah upon those of our loved ones who have passed away, those who are due to be born. So a quick short yes for sure, and I will highlight that the Lajna members of our Jamaat do this in abundance. When I get the end of year reports, instantly the lady members who are giving on behalf of their mothers or fathers.
Sorry, Fahim Sahib, We're gonna
Can you-
end it because you just keep on cutting out and we're not getting any of what you are saying. Really, apologies. We do have quite a few questions, but unfortunately, I think your connection is not very good at the moment. So, Shakil Saab, do you want to end it off?
Yeah, okay. Well, Jazakallah for, as I said, for the lecture, Fahim Saab and Anwer Saab. So, and apologies for this delay in the internet. Okay. So, dear viewers, Jazakallah for watching. And apologies for we couldn't answer all your questions, but
Yep,
please
no,
continue.
Nadeem, I can hear you clearly still.
Our next Urdu lecture is on Monday, the 16th of November. Importance and Blessings of Waqf-e-Jadid by Faz Ahmed Zaid Murabi Saab Silsila. And similarly, English lecture on the 17th of November, Tuesday, Isra and Miraj by Raza Ahmed Murabi Silsila at 8 p.m. I'll hand over to now our respected Talim Secretary Sahib and Nadim Rehan for any closing remarks.
Jazakallah, Shakil Saab.
Nadeem, I think if my mic's not working, then
Jazakallah, Shakil Saab. And I would obviously like to say Jazakallah and thank you for all the viewers today that have participated. Allah bless you all. Most importantly to Fahim Saab and Nayib Saab for taking the time out and giving us the education on this important scheme. If I could kindly request Fahim Saab, if you could conclude this session for us and lead us in silent prayer, that would really be appreciated. Fahim Saab, if you could lead us in silent prayer.
Nadeem Saab, can you hear me?
If you could lead us in silent prayer, Fahim Saab.
Amen.
Amen. Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.